Hi friends! Today I am making sourdough dinner rolls. The recipe I'm using is from Lisa at Farmhouse on Boone. They are really easy and really delicious. So let's get started. This is a recipe that you mix in the evening, let rise overnight, and bake the next day. This is the afternoon. I'm going to feed my sourdough starter, let it rise all afternoon, and then mix the bread before bedtime. So now I have my starter. It just came out of the fridge, so it's deflated, it's cold, it's not doing much of anything. And I have flour. Some people measure how much flour and water they put in. I do not. I just dump it until it looks the correct consistency. But equal parts flour and water. So if you're just starting out, you can do a cup of flour to a cup of water, whatever you want to do. Basically, I just want it to look like thick pancake batter. I know the correct consistency at this point. Something else to note. Learning sourdough is a process. I can't tell you an exact time or measurement or anything like that because the rising of your sourdough really depends on your humidity, the temperature, the season, the time of day, where it's sitting. There are so many factors, which sounds really overwhelming, but you will get the hang of it. You just have to keep practicing and noticing how it works. And the vast majority of the time, you can use it whenever. I have fed mine and it has completely deflated. I've used it in a loaf of bread and it has worked just fine. This is also of note. This is a mature starter. I've had it for almost 4 years. So it can deflate. I can feed it at weird intervals and it is robust enough to handle that. So something to consider as you are learning sourdough. Let's feed this. That's about a cup of flour. I'm going to get some water, then mix it up. This is what my starter looks like now. I fed it with flour and water, mixed it in really well. This is the consistency. I find that works well for me. Again, it changes depending on the season, temperature, and humidity. Now I will put my lid on it. I will leave it slightly askew. You need a little bit of airflow. You don't want the lid on too tightly. And then that will rise. I will make some bread before bedtime. See you later. My sourdough starter has risen and now I need some flour. I like to grind my own grains, so I have my mock mill here that I will use to grind my hard white wheat berries. I've already measured them. For me, I need 2 cups of flour for this recipe. So for me, half a cup plus 1 tablespoon of wheat berries equals 1 cup of flour. So I measure it before it goes in the mill and then we'll just dump it in the mixer from here. Let's do it. There's an on button on the side. Take the lid off, put the wheat berries in the top and they will come out fluffy, fine, warm flour here. I'll show you. I'm ready to combine my dough. Let's check out my sourdough starter. See the bubbles on the top? That's what we like to see. It is getting a little watery in here, so I know that the yeast have eaten all of the flour and water, and so I should use this. Check out the bubbles in the sides. Looking really good. I have my flour here and I have the rest of the ingredients in my mixing bowl. I decided to use my regular stand mixer today. I often use my Bosch, but most people have a KitchenAid or something like this one. So this recipe will be made in my regular stand mixer with the dough hook attachment. So in this bowl already, I have sugar, water, melted butter, salt. Then I will be adding flour and sourdough starter. Let's do that. A lot of recipes call for sourdough starter in grams. This one calls for cups, so this is a half a cup. I'll scoop it. You'll be able to see the stretchiness and all the bubbles. Put it in here. I'll grab my spatula and clean this out. The sourdough is in the bowl. I'm done with my starter now, so I will feed it a little bit of flour and water and put it in the fridge. It still like ferments and rises in the fridge, it's just much more slowly. So because this has already eaten through its flour and water reserves, I'll give it some more and stick it in the fridge for the next time I bake. I'm going to add my flour now. If I put all the flour in and use the dough hook right away, it will puff up and make a big mess. So I think I'm going to dump it in here, mix it around with my spatula a little bit, and then I won't get such a big mess. My Bosch has a nice cover that goes over the whole top of it. This one does not. And I dislike cleaning up flour or wasting it. So I will mix this a little bit better once I have two hands, and then come back when it's time to knead it. We are ready to mix. I let mine sit for about 10 minutes in between the last clip in this one because I used freshly milled flour. Freshly milled flour does take longer to absorb all of the liquid. If you use all-purpose flour, you do not have to wait that 10 minutes. Let's get started. That's one of the reasons I like my Bosch. It has suction cups on the feet so it doesn't walk around. But this is what my dough looks like. I've been kneading it on high-ish for maybe 4 minutes. The recipe calls for about 5 minutes until the dough becomes elastic. Let's check it out. So this dough is quite enriched. It's not tacky and it's not greasy, but you can tell there's a lot of butter in it. Enriched means that there's butter or milk or like extra fat added to it, which is part of the reason it's so delicious when they're done. But it's a little bit sticky, but it doesn't stick to my fingers. It sticks to itself more than it sticks to me. Smooth and elastic. Again, it feels like it's sticking on my hands, but it comes right off. So I like to see how elastic I can make it into this nice ball. There you go. That's your dough. It doesn't feel like loaf bread dough. It feels different. And that's one of the great things about just practicing making bread is you get a feel for it. That I know what this recipe feels like, and I know what my loaf dough feels like, and I know what bagels feel like. And that's why I don't give exact like speed on your mixer, exact time, exact sourdough, exact whatever. It's because it's always different and you get to learn the feel of it. And that's one of the reasons that baking is so much fun. It's science and it's art. It's practice. It's getting your hands on the dough, knowing what it feels like. I know of people who never use mixers because they just want to know what the dough feels like. They know exactly when to stop. They know exactly when to add water or flour or whatever it is. And I don't want to knead it all by hand, but I do like just doing this is so rewarding to know that I made this dough and it's going to feed us tomorrow. The next step is to put this dough back in the bowl and cover it with a silicone lid or a wet tea towel. You need it to be able to breathe, but you want to protect it from too much airflow because the skin will go on the top and then it's hard to mix it all in together. So into the bowl it goes. I will be back in the morning to shape this dough into dinner rolls. Good morning, it's time to check on the dough.
Mama!
Nice and puffy and ready to go. So next step, I'm going to dump it out and divide it into parts. So the recipe calls for 8 parts. I find that those rolls are pretty big. So if I want to do hamburger buns, I will do it in 8 parts. If I want to do dinner rolls, I will do it in 12 parts. You can get really technical and measure to make sure all of your rolls are the same size, but I am not going to do that. I'm just going to eyeball it because got to keep moving.
Mama, okay.
Not right now, buddy.
Mama, where was your oldest? What it is?
I now have 12 balls of dough, and I'm going to show you how to shape them into rolls. There are two methods that I see a lot. I have a preferred method, but maybe you'll like one more than the other. So grab a ball of dough. So I'm going to create tension on the top and make a seam on the bottom. So I'm going to pull the top around to the bottom, turn it, pull it around to the bottom, pull it around to the bottom. Just keep rotating it until I have a nice smooth top, which is hard to do like this. Okay, so my top looks pretty good, and I have a seam, seam here on the bottom. I'm just going to pinch that together. And the seam goes on the bottom, and the nice round part goes on the top. I will put it into my greased pan. Here is the second method. Grab a dough ball, and I'm going to use the tension of the counter to roll it around and make it a ball. So this is what it looks like, and then I'll break it down. And that gets me a nice smooth ball.
Mama, get it out there.
You got it out again? Okay, put it back in.
Get it out.
Let me show you what I'm doing. So I make like a claw with my hand, and I roll it around. What you can't see is my pinky is pushing underneath to use the tension of the counter to pull it around. So pinky, pinky, and then my thumb pushes it back. Pinky, thumb, pinky, thumb. I just use these fingers to keep it in place. So I'm, mostly using my pinky to drag it on the counter and pull the ball. There you go. I'll show you another one. Into the loaf pan, not loaf pan, baking dish. Here we go. This is my preferred method because it's much faster. Some people can do two at the same time.
Mama,
I'm not that coordinated. There you go. I'll show you the other method again. Pull it down, twist. Pull it down, pull it down, pull it down. So the top is nice and smooth. I have this seam here on the bottom. I'll pinch it together. And the seam goes on the bottom so you can't see it when it rises. Again with the rolling. There you go. These are my shaped rolls. They are in a greased 9x13. I'm going to cover these with a damp towel and let them rise for 1 or 2 hours until they are puffy. This will depend on the temperature of your house and the strength of your sourdough starter, but I will be back in a little bit. My rolls have been sitting on the counter for about 2 hours. My kitchen is 70 degrees right now. The humidity is quite low, so it took them a little bit longer to rise, but they're puffy, filling in the gaps. Obviously, they're not all the same size. They will bake up just fine. I preheated my oven to 350, and I will put them in soon. Golden brown out of the oven. These are now cool enough to handle. They're really soft, really fluffy on the inside, just lightly golden brown on the top. Perfect served with butter, jam, or for sandwiches. My kids like to eat them just like this. They have a great flavor from the sourdough, but they're nice and soft from the butter. Really good. Highly recommend them. Super easy, super delicious.